Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining this WEACT TICTAC webinar in partnership mainly with SWEA, the South Ward Environmental Alliance. I'm going to pass it to Asada and the rest of our speakers in a minute. But I just wanted to provide a little quick overview of tonight's schedule. We'll be talking about, youth inclusion and engagement in the movement. Thank you, Asada. And just to go over some few technical points for tonight, this meeting is being recorded right now, so we'll be able to share the recording and any slides with our participants who've joined tonight. Please keep yourself muted if you don't mind while presenters are speaking. If you have a question prior to our Q&A portion at the end of the hour, you can go ahead and drop it in the chat as it comes to mind, and we'll get to it at the end. During the Q&A section, we'll be answering questions from the chat. You can also just use the raise hand reaction in Zoom, and we'll call on you, and you can take yourself off mute and feel free to answer that way. Next slide. So this webinar tonight is a joint effort of WEACT and our partner SWEA. We're partners together in our Thriving Community Technical Assistance Center, which is really a technical assistance center serving all of New York, all of New Jersey, helping environmental justice groups really gain access to grant funding and build their capacity to, build their EJ projects and secure different lines of funding streams for those projects. So we help folks, prepare grant applications. We help folks engage with environmental justice law and policy, engage with decision makers. We really help groups to develop collaborative partnerships. You definitely need partnerships to, apply to grants for, so that's an important aspect of what the TICTAC can do. And really, I would say our WEACT TICTAC goals are primarily just to build power and knowledge in EJ communities. And we do this through trainings like this, and really just help, strengthen EJ networks in our region, I would say, especially right now. Next slide. Just so everyone knows, if you are not located in New York or New Jersey, you still have access to a TICTAC in your region. So again, these slides will be available after the webinar, but there's a link here if you're outside of the region where you can click and find, for your state, who is your TICTAC. You can, find an intake form or an email address for them and reach out to them with any sort of, technical assistance needs you may have around your EJ work, your, energy justice, climate justice work, whatever you're really doing. So with that, I think I can pass it back to Asada. Yes.
Thank you, Jordana. Welcome, everyone, to today's panel on youth inclusion in the environmental justice movement. My name is Asada Rashidi. I serve as the environmental justice organizer for South Ward Environmental Alliance, and I'm honored to be your moderator today. This evening, we are bringing together an incredible group of young leaders who are making waves in the environmental justice space. Youth play a critical role in the environmental justice movement, but often face barriers to meaningful inclusion. Many organizations recognize the need for youth engagement, but may struggle with strategies to implement it effectively. This panel will discuss these challenges, share personal experiences, and explore ways to strengthen youth participation in environmental justice. Tonight, our panelists are Naisha Mallet, the youth organizer for Uprose, Chloe Desir, the environmental justice policy analyst for Ironbound Community Corporation, X Braithwaite, the environmental justice organizer for Clean Water Action, and Tanner Yes, the chief youth the Chief Youth and Workforce Officer for Groundwork USA. And let's dive right in. To kick things off, I'd love to hear from each of you what sparked, sorry, what sparked your passion for the environmental justice? What motivated you to get involved? And how has your organization supported you in this work? And first, we'd like to hear from Naisha Ballard.
Hey everyone, very nice to be on this call today. I love this first question because, like, honestly, it's a moment of reflection for me. I started working at Uprose in 2015, so this is my 10th year being an organizer with Uprose. And I've really just personally just been reflecting on the amount of work that I've been able to do within the last 10 years. And yeah, I personally began organizing with Uprose. In New York City, we have something called SYEP, Summer Youth Employment Program. And that was an opportunity for me to start working early. So honestly, I was just looking for my first job. But when I was going around to the different tables, Uprose really caught my attention. And I was just interested. So started working there in the summer. And honestly, that was like my moment of radicalization, right? That's how they kind of grappled and caught my attention. And I always think about that because that was the summer between me going from middle school to high school. So it was a really pivotal moment for me in just like growing as a person, but also like I'm starting to think about what I want to do and the things that I'm interested in. And they really just became that gateway for me. So yeah, that's how I started to get involved with Uprose. And throughout my 10 years of being with them, I've been able to do a lot of different panels like this, but I've also got to travel to different states and meet and speak with different young people across the US, but also across the world, right? I've been able to go to COP and speak at COP and work with young people out there. I got the opportunity to be a part of a fellowship and a lot of different things. So just access to different things that can grow me as a person, but also help me grow as a person within this work. So I'm super grateful for Uprose. They are important to me because they help me establish like my foundation. And that's what I think about when I think when young people should like be looking into organizations, like where is that foundational base for you? Where do you see yourself growing for the next 10 years, right? Especially because I don't do this work every day. I do work in the high school, but I also continue to do this anytime I have free time. So it also just says a lot about the space as well.
Thank you so much for sharing, Naisha. Next, we'd like to hear from Chloe. Chloe Desir.
Yes, thank you. I'm really happy to be in this space, very appreciative. I want to say that I feel like I've always been in an environmental justice space, just coming from frontline community. How I ended up in it was just having such a deep passion for social justice altogether, and finding this work and connecting with people that shared a similar experience to me, both like in the face of like identity, but also an experience like living in frontline communities and having different identities. Um, and then realizing that environmental justice, and thankfully through my job and with my organization, learning how intersectional it is with a multitude of different issues, going from talking about how important it is to have accessible, affordable housing, especially in places that have high flood zones or are in the midst of heat islands, you know. I think that being able to see that all of those things are intertwined, and trying to fight for and advocate for green spaces and for people to breathe clean air, has been something that I've really developed a deep passion for. And I'm really happy that I was able to do that.
Thanks, Chloe, for sharing. Next.
Yeah, thank you again, Asada, for having me. So my name is X, and I'm the Environmental Justice Organizer for Clean Water Action. And I would definitely second what Chloe and Naisha have already said. Well, first off, I needed my first job. But secondly, seeing the intersections of really social justice, public health issues, and just the way that they impact communities like mine. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. It really was eye-opening. So I'll say for background, I've kind of always been an organizer. I've been organizing since I was 14 with the Newark Students Union, and then I became a Bonner Scholar. I don't know if y'all heard of that program, but the Bonner program is essentially a full scholarship for underrepresented groups to do community service and basically give back to the community while, in school. So I've done services ranging from, immigrant and refugee rights, tutoring, being an urban debate league coach. So I've done a lot of different services. So by the end of my college career, I was really looking for something not only that's meaningful, but also something that's just where I'm from. So I went to school in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I had a couple offers there. I was also offered like a healthcare union job in Minnesota, but I interviewed with Clean Water Action as an EJ organizer, and at first I had no idea what EJ was. But when I actually looked into the data, when I was able to understand what the program would be and my role would be, I really kind of got invested in it from there. Seeing like the public health stressors that my community faces, and how that related to my role, really made me lean towards this job. So for example, like in Newark, I know we were having a really bad leg crisis issue, and I had no idea that that was connected to environmental justice. So as a middle schooler, they told us not to drink from the water fountains. They had to bring cases of water in every day. And I had no idea that that was connected to a justice issue and injustices of communities of color basically being forgotten about in terms of infrastructure. And now, in my role, I'm able to educate community members on the public health stressors. I work very closely with our Department of Environmental Protection, basically bringing awareness to the polluting facilities that are in our areas, and just really allowing community members to understand these issues so they're able to better, I guess, advocate for themselves in healthier spaces that they would want to see.
Thank you so much, X. I definitely agree with what you said. Tanner.
What's up, everybody? As X said, I think there's going to be a lot of seconding and thirding around here. So it's an honor to be with y'all, and everything everyone has said already, I third now at this point. So when we talk about life experience, career path, etc., I think justice issues and going into work on justice and social issues, things like that, you don't choose justice, you kind of step up to justice. That evolution or that pathway is determined by how much privilege you have. So I never ask like how much privilege you have or how much privilege you were born with. I ask like, what do you do with the amount of privilege you have? Is it, that much, a tiny bit, or is it a huge amount? You can do something with it no matter how much you have. And that determines the quality or the values of the person and the movement, etc. So stepping up to justice work, for me, I had enough privilege to be outdoors in some of my native lands. I had enough privilege with parents who valued the environment and so forth. But coming up in this world, whether it's socioeconomics or race, I never saw anybody who looked like me necessarily in these rooms and in these spaces, et cetera, et cetera. I found Groundwork, which is the organization I work for now. It's called Groundwork USA, but we're in 21 cities across the country. I started the chapter in Cincinnati, but I started there as a youth, and we went regional. So as a young person, I came in, I was like, oh, wow, it's a rainbow situation. There's different colors, different beliefs, different ethnicities. And I said, okay, I have a home here. I can find a footing and inclusivity as it relates to justice, where social justice, racial justice work. And I was, able to expand and blossom in that context. So being with Groundwork and organizations that we all work for, they can provide these pathways. Now I run 21 cities and help with their youth green workforce programs. In Cincinnati, we started one of the largest in the country, employing over 200 youth employees in environmental justice and green jobs work. And so that was something that I was able to ascend with and grow with. And it's a testament to what organizations like all of ours can do if reaching folks who might not have the privilege to begin with for all of these things. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, all of you. It is really inspiring to hear how each of you found your way into this movement. Similarly, myself, as I think two of you mentioned, just looking for that first job, but really feeling connected, really seeing the injustices that we face on a daily basis because of the color of our skin, the zip code that we live in. It really pulls you in and you really want to just be able to advocate and inform and empower the communities around you to be able to know that these are the injustices we are facing, but here's what we can do. Here are the solutions we can provide so that we can live in more sustainable, healthier environments and communities. And as we know, young leaders face many challenges when stepping into advocacy spaces. Let's talk about some of those barriers and, more importantly, how they can be overcome. What has been some of the biggest challenges that you guys have faced, and what solutions have you found? And feel free, you don't have to go into any particular order. Feel free to just jump in and answer.
For me, I I'm grateful to have been able to come up with an UpRose because something that we preach a lot is intergenerational leadership. And that's something that has been practiced since I was 14. So I always felt like whenever I was stepping into the room, I was supposed to be there. My voice was always like asked to be like, they wanted to hear my voice. They wanted me to sit in the meetings. I would come after school and just sit in on the meeting and they'd be like, hey, what do you think about this, this, and that? And I'll be scared to talk, but after I'll feel more empowered because they're like, yeah, I didn't think about this. And, I'm adding that perspective, right? So I personally feel like it's not a strong movement. It's not a strong environment if there's no intergenerational leadership. If there is a struggle between the youth and the elders, something is wrong. There's some kind of disconnect. And I also say that because like, as a Black person, I know that my relationships with my elders have always been really strong. And my connection with my family or my connection outside of my family, there was always that respect. And I feel like that's something that um, we just carry, it's something that we have to like think about and also like something that we live, right? So I never had an experience in which I had to battle my elders to be heard. So I'm hoping that moving forward, more spaces are being open to that intergenerational perspective. Because it's important if we're going to go anywhere. If we think about any of our movements in the past, it's all been started by young people, right? And those young people become elders. And for us to pick up their battle and continue it and to fight it, we have to learn from their mistakes or from what they've done so that we can continue to do the right things, right? So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
I'm happy to hop in here. I think that there's been a couple of things in like the past couple of years of one going into this space as a young person, um, that I think that I've noticed that I want to be more vocal about. I mean, I think that one of the things that I've noticed going into this space is like how often folks are like, we need youth. Like, where is the youth? Like, how do we bring more space and hold it for them and make it more accessible? And meanwhile, I think there's probably like a disconnect of like going on the ground and hearing the youth and them saying, oh, like our voices are valued. Like this is something that you guys want from us. Like it's something that I feel like we definitely need to work a little harder to bridge. And I am looking forward for this being like the start of that. I also feel like one of the things that I can use that as an example, locally in Newark, we just started having our 16-year-olds being eligible to vote for school board elections. and going on the ground and like having these conversations with kids of like, did you even know about this? Like, are you aware? And that being a low yes has been a thing for me as well, to be like, oh my goodness, trying to make sure that we're informing folks about how important their voices are. I think that being able to also try to relieve those misconceptions that the youth don't have valid and strong opinions, or the knowledge that they need to be able to make decisions that are impactful and important. I think that's one of the things that I've also noticed of like bringing out this outreach and talking to other folks, and they're like, but do kids know the knowledge that they need, or like the background that they need, or the opinions are strong enough to make decisions like voting? And I mean, it's almost offensive because I could have wished that when I was 16 that I was able to have a platform like that, to really speak on the opinions that I had, that I think were very valuable, and quite frankly have only evolved since putting them into fruition. So I think that's definitely something I want to put into the space.
Thanks, Chloe. X or Tanner, do
I
you?
was looking at UX. I was like, are they gonna do it? Are they gonna?
I was looking at you too, so go ahead.
All right. Appreciate you. So again, yes, yes, yes. Culture, capitalism, perception, all of these things, whatever it may be, our connection to the world has been taken from us. You look at immigration, slavery, co-opted messaging, the perception of elders. I know I'm called a coconut a lot. Maybe it's an Oreo, a banana, etc. Right? Whatever it may be, these things have been taken, so they need to be rebuilt. They can be rebuilt through work, right? Like job programs, like Naisha mentioned, and that I'm part of and run as well, or all sorts of other things. It can be spiritual, it can be healing, it can be going with folks like you into spaces that you didn't feel comfortable before. Whatever it may be, we have all these avenues, and we have the creativity. Again, as Naisha said, the thing that keeps me and keeps my drive at it, no matter what way you get to it, is we're always talked about in a deficit, right, and less of an abundance thing. And I think one of the greatest powers in the world, the untapped potential of our young people, I call it harnessing the hustle. If you don't know that there's an opportunity for you, you don't know that there's an opportunity for you, right? If you get a little bit of an inkling or a little bit of a light, you can expand that into something special. So the next great conservationist, right? The next great policy writer, whatever it is, folks on this panel, folks who are here on the webinar, they are there. But do they have the pathway and have maybe the opportunity or the friend or the mentor or whatever to get to that point? So we have everything we need. It's a matter of abundance thinking and reaching out and building community.
Yeah, for sure, Tanner. I feel like you took the words out of my mouth. I feel like one of the main barriers that I've seen is definitely disconnection from the resources that are already out there. So we have youth that are going out into the community with really little context on what actually, I guess, the communities that they're in are facing. You know, I was very lucky to have Kim Gaddy, who is the director of the and founder of the Southward Environmental Alliance, to be a mentor to me. And definitely what Naisha has been saying about elders being in this space, it's very, very crucial. Without that intergenerational piece, I think we lose a lot of the knowledge and a lot of the background, and we have a tendency to, I guess, not only recreate the wheel, but repeat history when we don't have that perspective from the elders. I think definitely a way that we can, I guess, bridge this gap is not only like discussions like these, but also just spaces where youth voices are primarily there to ask questions, to be inquisitive about like what the elders have been experiencing. I definitely think in my personal experience, a lot of my knowledge, a lot of the way I do organizing now has been just through watching the older organizers. Like I said, I majored in community and justice studies, and a lot of the things that I had to read are very old. The Midwest Academy booklets, all of that, that all taught me what I do today. And yeah, I would say definitely bridging that gap, making sure that there's a source of knowledge and a wealth of knowledge for young folks to understand. The organizing strategies that we've used in the past are still helpful to this day.
Yes, thank you. Definitely agree with everything you all have said. That intergenerational piece, Tanner, I love the harnessing the hustle. Chloe speaking on, that education, that knowledge. What are we really sharing with the youth? And then not just waiting for them to say, okay, make that connection themselves, but just bridging out from the beginning to make sure they have that connectivity and feel that support. And you all have mentioned the intersectionalities. I just love to get a little deeper on that and hear how, hear how, we see youth leadership playing a role in bridging all of these movements together. Anyone, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that all these issues are connected, right? And honestly, you can't solve one without solving the other, right? So it's important for young people to find their leadership values early, but also like find their interest early, right? Not everybody's into the environment, right? Some people want to be, I'm also an artist. That might be your outlet in terms of the movement, right? But I feel once young people are exposed to things early and they're able to figure that out, then we have a balance of different people working across the board, right? And I think it's also just a question of like the question of not the question, but the value of we versus me, right? And if everybody is in the mindset of like, I'm doing this to not just better myself, but the community around me, whatever movement, whatever work that you do, you're uplifting the the masses, right? You're doing work towards the people. So I always try to make that connection because I feel like people may feel like they're not doing enough or they should be doing something else. But you need to figure out how you can be impactful in the lane that you're in. And again, since all of these are connected, you're doing the work regardless.
I want to hop on that because that's definitely exactly the thoughts that I was formulating in my mind as far as like bridging mediums, right? So a lot of folks don't see how you can integrate all of these things into a movement, like being an artist, being a dancer. I teach yoga and I take that opportunity to tell people this is a form of liberation. This is a tool of liberation because self-care and wellness is something that you need to do to prevent burnout while you're doing the work, right? I think making sure that we can use the tools that are most accessible to us and things that we feel like we can flourish in as a part of, building and garnering community and strengthening it, is definitely how we can help movements through youth leadership as well. I mean, the young folks are definitely creating new innovative ways. And I'm saying that like I'm an old head, but I'm like, but I definitely feel that way. Like I'm always like, even like high schoolers that I'm talking to, I'm like, y'all are coming up with like new things all the time. But I think that's definitely something that I've been able to learn how I can contribute to a movement and show ways of leadership.
Yeah, I definitely second all of that. I feel like in terms of what we can do to, I guess, bridge the gap between social justice and environmental justice, because a lot of folks feel like they're separate, is really focusing on the strengths of the youth. So I'll just give an example of one of my projects. I'm actually working kind of in the reproductive health field, maternal health field, not directly, but actually through a concept that I learned very recently called beauty justice, right? And beauty justice is basically the idea that women of color, people of color, and women in general are disproportionately harmed by the products that they use. And this is a super new concept. I think within the last 20 years, it's really been discovered that teens are at, a vulnerable development stage where it matters the most what products they're putting on their bodies. And I feel like through leadership roles, I think just focusing on people's strengths. If you like beauty products, if you like makeup, this is a space for you. If you like talking about reproductive health issues, if you like talking about children's health, this is a space for you. So really just bridging the gap between social justice as a whole and how that relates to the environment. Because like I said, at the beginning of this job, I had no idea where my place was. I started about a year and a half ago, and I really, it took me a minute to wrap my head around the concept that this issue starts at home. It's not about global climate change. It's literally about the front lines of where we live now. And it's, disheartening to see all the rollbacks, honestly, on the initiatives that the EPA has put forth, that the previous administration has put forth, because they're directly impacting those who need, the technical assistance the most. So when we look at lead statistics, when we look at statistics of asthma, right? 1 in 4 kids in Newark have asthma, and that's not by coincidence, right? That's because of literally the area that they live in. I work in a community in Jersey City, and Jersey City leads into New York City, so that highway is very, very a high volume area, and they call that area asthma alley, because all essentially 1 in 3 kids, I believe, there have asthma. It's very high rates. And, like I said, it's not by coincidence. So I think if we can connect the dots, I think if we can, break into the fields that people are already interested in, like the school to prison pipeline, carceral justice issues, and really seeing how that affects larger social movements through public health, through the lens of environmental health, that matters a lot.
It's tough to go last here. Everybody's so good. Chloe, I think I might be an old head too, so don't treat me as an outlier here, everybody. But I third everything, and another thing I like to say too about this as it relates to youth and any power movement, any justice movement, that environmental justice is racial justice, is social justice, is transportation justice, is healthcare, et cetera, right? These things are wrapped up and inextricably linked, and we got to show them, because do you know what they think the public at large, the dominant culture thinks? They think violence is increasing, youth violence is increasing, and it's black and brown kids. They think, that the prison pipeline, as X mentioned, is growing, that it's y'all's fault. They think that it's that the brain drain is real and nobody cares about their homes or their communities, et cetera. So you got to show them. And what I think that means in this context, in this day and age, regardless of whatever platform you use, is owning your story and being those against the mainstream symbols or symbols of excellence or whatever, and even challenging yourself as a young person or someone working in an institution and say, how do I reach outside of my choir? And choirs are good. We all got to have our choirs. I'm not saying don't preach to the choir, because we need our people, we need our support, and we need a place to rest. But also reach into local news, right? Whatever it may be, because that's what they're watching. So reach into that platform, reach into the spaces that you might not be connected to. This is a way to bring folks in, especially those on the margins, right? Things are so polarized. You may not reach someone who's way over there, but those on the margins, those might be thinking this or that. These are ways that you can reach those folks, those audiences, those potential partners, and bring people into the fold.
Yes, thank you all. Such powerful, powerful responses. Definitely agree with all that's being said. And just being able to meet people where they are and force try those connections, show everyone how everything ties into each other, how it relates, and then again amplify those stories and make sure they know um, it's all affecting you. It is all affecting. It's all very important. And as we move into a new year, I'd love to hear about your upcoming plans and initiatives uh, that your organizations are doing, the events you guys are doing to engage youth in environmental justice.
I don't mind starting. Yeah, there's a couple things that we want to do to engage youth. Something we always say at Uprose is just like we don't have youth programming, we do like youth activation, right? So we don't necessarily want to just be a space where kids are like, okay, I'm going to do this, and this, and there's like no thought and action into it. We want them to kind of like, this is what I'm coming here to do this, and I'm planning it out, right? I have some kind of initiative on the projects that I want to do, what I want to learn, what resources I need in order to do those projects, right? So one thing that we want to focus on is just like youth trainings and something we've been doing for a while. And we have cohorts, so we're gonna have a couple cohorts of maybe 4 different cohorts of youth, and we're gonna do youth trainings throughout the summer. And we're just hoping to build, just start radicalizing those young minds again. I work in a high school, so I work with a lot of young people. I think something that I've noticed is that, at least with this generation, they do like to be told what to do a lot, right? And they're kind of lacking that initiative that I feel like a lot of people, I'm not that far from them. So I'm always like in my head, like, wow, so different. Like, I don't understand. But we also know what's happening to our educational systems and the intention that's happening behind the scenes in order to keep our young people from knowing what's going on, right? So I think it's super intentional. And I think it's important for us to bring education and radicalizing young people's minds from an early start. So yeah, we're gonna do some youth trainings. We also, young people put on an event. Sometimes we do youth summits and we allow them to kind of basically take over, right? They kind of plan out the whole event. And we've had really big and large youth summits up to 500 people at times. The first time I started organizing with Uprose, I got to organize a summit. And I've been doing it since. So yeah, there's just different opportunities. And also just like bringing in like career pathways and stuff like that, so young people can understand more of like what they want to do and just start future planning.
Anyone else want to chime in? Go ahead.
I well, the first thing that's most pressing is getting the youth to come out to vote for this school board election. That is like the first thing because I definitely think it's so important for that turnout to come. Um, in the city itself, we have a very low voter turnout already. Plus considering, impacts of voter suppression in Black and brown areas, that really puts this to a serious drive for me. And also just making sure that folks are informed about who to hold accountable, and continuing that move of like informing folks about that and what they can do to further amplify the issues that they care about. I also feel like we should definitely be putting some more initiatives out to show folks how to be radical organizers, especially as youth, giving them the tools that they need to and become agents of change, and making sure that they have a say in all the matters that are going to be impacting them in the future. In this moment that we're having climate issues and being in a climate crisis, it's going to be impacting their future. Like they should definitely be at the forefront of all those conversations.
Yeah, I definitely want to second what Chloe said about radicalizing the youth. I think that that's honestly the most important part of this. Really meeting, young people where they're at in terms of the issues that they care about. So I want to refer back to like the beauty justice program that I'm doing. First off, we plan on doing workshops that are like DIY, make your own product workshops, in North cosmetology schools. But not only that, we're also just doing outreach in general to schools about how they can be more engaged, I guess, in environmental issues. So we're hoping to host a small cohort of Bonner scholars this summer. Bonners have to do 360 hours of service over 2 years. And yeah, it's a really intense program, but through it you learn, very vital community organizing skills that they basically take all over the country. Bonners, they amaze me every time I see what they're doing because there are about 60 Bonner schools, and not only do they go into their own communities back with this knowledge, but they also export it to communities like Newark, and we really, really need that. So that as well as through the Beauty Justice Program, we want to do a Train the Trainers program. And in that, we're basically going to be training young people to be ambassadors for beauty justice, ambassadors for reproductive justice, to not only have me or have, somebody at the forefront doing the work, but really a sort of horizontal organizing strategy where we're all taking a piece that we care about and using it to our advantage. So I would say that as well. And yeah, just, doing workshops, doing speaking events at schools. I've done several, and it's really eye-opening to see like how engaged the kids are once they realize what the issue is. So, for example, I went to a charter school in Newark over the summer to talk about EJ issues, and I just pulled up regular facts. I said, "How many of y'all know somebody have who has asthma or have asthma yourself?" Right? More than half the class raised their hand. And, I started asking, why is that? When is your asthma the worst, etc. And then that's really when they started to understand that it's about the environment that they're in. And not only that, they were able to personally connect it to their experience because they actually go to school right next to a contaminated site, a site of known contamination. It used to be a laundromat, and now the soil is contaminated, and you can inhale that stuff, and it's actually a part of their field. So there's a whole section blocked off that they can't play in or can't, recreate just because industry chose to move themselves next to vulnerable populations. So definitely meeting kids where they're at and finding really what ways they, I guess, can start thinking about environmental justice that relate to their own personal experiences.
I love this question because there's so many scales to it, and we've heard some great examples of regional, national, very local, and I just want to scale back a little bit and then maybe get a little more refined, like some of the other panelists have, because when you're in this moment of time in the nation and the world, and there's the political winds are shifting, and the instability seems like a lot. You pair that with climate anxiety with our young folks and all the other real world problems folks are facing, you can feel a real lack of control. And I think that's where you get to into the psychology of this. What can I do as one person? Then, imagine yourself as maybe someone with less agency or a young person, whatever it may be. What can I do in this moment? So the work that we do is not empowering, it's revealing the power, right? Everyone has power, accessing the power, the opportunity to the power. These are the things that build that confidence and build that resilience. And this is the key word I think all of us are really touching on as we move forward, the resilience in this time and in any time. So how do we build that and how do we put it into motion? Some of the things I'm working on with our 20 cities and their youth green workforce programs are projects like air quality. Our young people are going out, whether it's on bike, whether it's indoor, outdoor, they're monitoring their air, they're learning about what's going on firsthand in their neighborhood. And then what are things they can do about it? And this can happen regardless regardless if the data is accessible or not, right? If the data goes away, we can still do our own data collection. And then we can find our own solutions to these things like trees or whatever they may be. Having your hand in the dirt, having your hand in that vacant lot, in that green infrastructure program, on that mural, these are things that show that I have agency, I have power. And what's really exciting me in this time, and we talked about adapting and surviving, not just surviving, but thriving, things like business incubation. It's not enough to just get a job as a contractor or landscaper or whatever. What about building your own business and having the tools to do that and with folks who have the same values as you? So that's what's really exciting me in a time that can be very unexciting, for lack of a better word.
Thank you all. And just to add as well, Southport Environmental Alliance is also making sure we are engaging the youth. Chloe, to touch upon what you said about, that voter registration, voter access piece, we are partnering with the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice to make sure that we are a hub for that vote 16, making sure the 16 and up, these new voters are understanding what they are voting for and how we could, as you said, make sure we are voting for people who have our best foot forward, best intentions in mind, making sure we are putting the pressure on those people who are supposed to represent us. And then also having a section for them at our annual environmental summit that's coming up this April 12th, making sure that we are uplifting and amplifying the youth voices and having an actual breakout section for them to voice their concerns and voice their hope and intersectionality with what they are working on and how they can see themselves in this movement as well. And as we wrap, I want to make sure that we are making the discussion as actionable as possible. I just wanted to hear quickly what steps communities and organizations can take to ensure that these youth voices are not just heard, but valued and integrated into the decision-making spaces.
I think this year or these next 4 years or however we want to think about it, right? I think it's about organizing and I think it's about educating. And I think when it goes to young people, going into the schools, like we're all going into the schools, establishing those strong relationships, right? We have to go to the young people, wherever they're at, we have to go to them and make sure we're giving them the education that they're not going to get from certain spaces. And for me, that's like my main like outlook for or goal of the year in terms of just like fostering youth participation is having spaces in which they can come together and have those conversations with each other, but also where we can help facilitate those conversations with them, right? And then also giving them a way to practice those things that they're learning, right? The things that they're learning, and also like take control of it and own it as well. Like ownership is super important. And these kids knowing that they have the right to be in these spaces and they own the things that they're saying, but they're also own the work that they're doing, is super important. So yeah, just strengthening that foundation for them, and just making sure they have a home base. I think as long as young people have a home base, they know where to come back to. And for some reason, I always go back to Uprose, no matter where I am in my life. I always find my way back there. And that's how you know that, you found the spot where you need to be. Yeah, so outreach is super important. Yeah.
I know we're coming up on time, but if any other panelists wanted to answer this last question, and then maybe we take one or two questions from the audience.
I'll jump in with it's a soapbox. Whether it's youth or any relationship you have, and no one is perfect in it, right? It's about communication, getting to know them, listening to them, and being authentic. So if you're with an organization and you want to engage youth, like put yourself out there, right? Get to know what they're going through. and be authentic and come correct. Like if you make a mistake, it's all good. And I just say this about engagement of any type. As long as you put your values out there and authentic and real, um, youth or anybody is going to gravitate to that. So just, be yourself and get to know what their concerns are, what their priorities are, and then you can build with them.
The only thing I would even add to that is just, being able to provide more third spaces. Those are like dissipating, in our current capitalist structure. Trying to provide accessible spaces for folks to convene, giving resources to the youth, definitely creating that relationship where they can, foster trust and be able to feel like they can contribute, and it's a mutual energy that you're bringing forth.
Yeah, I definitely second, third, all of that. I would just say in general, creating safe spaces, right? We need platforms for young folks to really understand that they have a stake in these issues and really instead of, lecturing, we should see ourselves as organizers, as community organizations, as facilitators of these ideas, because at the end of the day, youth are going to be the folks who carry this work forward. So we really need, I guess, a communal space where they feel, like Naisha said, their voices are understood, they're valued, and they do and can make a change in social justice spaces.
Thank you all. Thank you all. We have covered some great insights today. And I know, again, we're coming up on time. So maybe we could take one or two questions from the audience, those online with us. Feel free to, if you haven't already, drop your question in the chat or come off mute, raise your hand. Jaquan Nooks. I'm sorry if
Uh,
I'm
I loved it.
mispronouncing.
Yeah, you pronounced it right. I loved your guys' presentation. I'm a college student and I'm currently studying heavily to get into law school, and I find myself going in and out of my community, like from like because I dorm away from my like current city. And I'm still passionate about social justice, and I would like to get involved or like organize or get involved in already established organizations. But I find myself, because like I have so much coursework, that's hard to balance it, or even if I have an internship that's related to my career path, it may overlap. So I just wanted to like get some advice on like balancing the two passions, like because I still want to get involved and do things for my community while still pursuing my dream to be a lawyer.
I think that's really cool. I definitely balanced a lot when I was in college. I mean, I did stay within New York City, so but I was working at Uprose and at the high school and also going to school. So I had to kind of find a balance of like where my energy was going. And then around that time, I also started organizing with a Cuba Solidarity group as well. So I found myself just like getting involved in things, but also I feel like things will come to you too. It depends on like the spaces that you're in, right? I'm sure there's like a lot of organizations that do a lot of organizing online. For example, the Cuba group that I work with, it doesn't have to be that, but most of the work happens online versus in a personal space because people are doing work across the US, right? So I know of a couple of organizations, and I can definitely put some in the chat. CJA is one of the organizations that we're a part of, the Climate Justice Alliance. And the Climate Justice Alliance is built up of different organizations across the US that do climate and environmental work. So if you have an organization in your hometown that is a part of CJA, that would be cool. And you can be a part of that network and organize within the global aspect. I do think it will be hard in terms of doing in-person work and on the ground work, especially because it sounds like you're away and you're dorming, right? So just finding whatever outlet you can do, even just starting something on your campus to get people involved in the work that you're interested in and building that base. And then later on, like expanding that will be really dope as well.
Thanks for answering that, Naisha. We'll do one more, and this is from Grace. What kind of training or mentorship programs have you found most effective in preparing young people to become radical organizers? I think this might be a question for either X or Chloe.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Oh,
Coco?
Yes. Oh, go ahead. The question is, what kind of training or mentorship programs have you found most effective in preparing young people to become radical organizers?
yeah, so I would just say I'm going to go back to my roots. The Midwest Academy has been a vital tool in organizing for a really long time. I believe it started or it really took off in the 90s, but basically they train young people with skills and strategies to really challenge, government majority, radicalize their understanding of I guess, social spaces. And it really is like a transformative program. They have like online sessions, they have huge convenings multiple times a year. And I would say definitely if you can find organizing spaces like that, that just solely focus on the training, that's something that's exportable that you can go back to your community and use. I'm working with a research student right now that doesn't know much about organizing. So what I do, I go back to my Midwest Academy books. I, share those resources with her because really that I guess legacy of organizing is really important in terms of building power. So yeah, programs like the Midwest Academy, Train the Trainers, I believe is a program that I can probably direct folks to. So yeah, for sure, for sure.
Thanks. Thank you so much. And as we are coming up on time, thank you all for sharing your insights and experiences today. It is clear that youth are not just the future of the environmental justice movement, we are the present. And I encourage everyone here to take what they've learned today and find ways to support and amplify youth leadership in their own communities. And before you go, uh, we would appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes to complete the feedback survey. Your thoughts will help us improve and continue to create impactful events. Thanks again to our wonderful, esteemed panelists and everyone who joined us this evening. And we look forward to seeing you at future discussions.